YouTube, it's Missy, and today I'm here to share with you guys my Around the World in 52 Books challenge that I participated in 2020, and this is the best, I think, that I have done in the last 4 years that I participated. I think I started this back in 2016, 2017, something like that, and then really didn't participate, but this year I really did it. And I did 51 out of 52 books, like 51 and a half out of 52 books. I wish I would have finished that last one, but I ran out of time on New Year's Eve. And so, yeah. I want to go over all of the books that I read, all 52 books, so let's get started. The first challenge was a book with a title that doesn't contain A, T, or Y, and that is Goblin by Josh Malerman. None of those letters are in the title. The next challenge was to read a book by an author whose last name is one syllable. So, dog, cat, one syllable. And that is In the House in the Dark of the Woods by Lard Hunt. One syllable. I love these challenges. The next challenge was read a book that you are prompted to read because of something you read in 2019. I'm going to put the actual cover over this book, but I read The Unready Queen, and I read that because I really liked The Changeling, and this one came out in 2019. Also, I was prompted by Al Dunquid to read both books. They contacted me for both, so I was prompted for that. All right, a book set in a place or time that you wouldn't want to live, and that is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This takes place in the 1960s. I would never want to live in the 1960s. Racism was so prevalent back then that it's disgusting. Like today, it's still there, but it's not as widely accepted. In the 60s, everyone was like, yeah, we don't like, people of color. In 2020, 2021, people are like, whoa, what's wrong with you? Times have changed. Get with the program. I don't ever want to go back to 1960s. The next challenge was to read a book in a series that you had not started, and that is Prison School. I had not started this series before, and so I read it. Next challenge was to read a book with a mode of transportation on the cover, and that is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. There is a car on the cover. They had to get to the Las Vegas, and they took a red convertible. The next challenge was to read a book set in the Southern Hemisphere, and that is Up to This Point by Jennifer Longo. This book takes place half in San Francisco and then half in Antarctica, so definitely the Southern Hemisphere. The next challenge was to read a book with a 2-word title where the first word starts with the, and that is The Neighbors by Ania Alborn. The next challenge was to read a book that you could read in a day, and I did read The Remaking in a single day, and this is by Clay McLeod Chapman. The next challenge was to read a book between 400 and 600 pages, and that is Broken Harbor. Broken Harbor is, let me just double check. No, not The Trespasser. 450 pages, so not quite to 60, but definitely over 400. The next challenge, and I was really awful at this challenge for a bit because I'm terrible at math, but I had to read a book that was originally published in a prime number year. So that is Hell World by Tom Levine. This was published in 2017, which is a prime number. I was like, what? I don't want to do math. Please stop making me do it. Next challenge was to read a collaboration between 2 or more authors, and so I did Piper, which is Jay Asher and Jessica Freeberg. Next challenge was to read a prompt from a previous Around the Year in 52 books, and for that one I chose, in 2016, one of the prompts was to read a book set in a different continent, and so The Undertaking of Lily Chen is set in China. and that's a different continent than I live in. Challenge number 14, and I have to read this because I can't memorize it, was a book by an author on the AB list of 100 essential female writers, and Octavia E. Butler was on that list, and so I read The Fledgling. The next challenge was to read a book set in a global city, so a city that everybody knows about, and so I chose Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. New York is a global city. It's a main port. Everybody goes there when they're coming to the United States. If they're coming from, say, Europe, they stop in New York and then they continue flying. I think this is like you can get a direct flight to New York and then you get another flight to go other places. That's how it works, I think. Okay, number 16, a book set in a rural or sparsely populated area, and I chose The Shuttering by Ania Alborn. This is set in Colorado, in the mountains, in a cabin. There's no neighbors. Yeah, very unpopulated. And then we have number 17, a book with a neurodiverse character. And so I have the unthinkable. Neurodiverse is someone who has mentally diverse, so someone who has a different brain than other people, which is super fitting because all of those people are neurodiverse. Okay, and then we have a book by an author you've only read once, and that is Clark Casey. I read his Dawn and Damnation, so I had only read one other book by him, and of course this is the sequel to his duology, The Dead Indian Wars. I really liked this one. Okay, the next challenge 19, was to read a fantasy book, and so we have The Princess Bride. This is absolutely 100% fantasy. There is no such thing as Buttercup and Prince Humperdinck. All right, the 20th book. This is the only one I did not finish. And the book is actually in the kitchen, and I'm not going to leave filming because then my husband will think that he can come in the room and bug me. And so here's a picture of what I was going to read, and that is The Ballad of Black Tom by Lavelle. What's his first name? You'll see the cover here. I was going to read this book for the 20th, and then it says ... So it could be the 20th on your TBR, the 20th book that you purchased in a year, and I chose the 20th book on my bookshelf app, like of books I own. It was the 20th book that was on my app, and I didn't finish it, so bummer drive to me. All right, the next challenge was a book related to Maximilian, what does this say? Maximilian Hell, the noted astronomer and Jesuit priest born in 1720. So it had to do with something that he had done. So he was an astronomer, but he also did the sciences and other things. So there was a long list of like subjects that would relate to this man, and astronaut was one of them because he did space. He was an astronomer, and so I read An Astronaut's Guide to Life. Yay. All right, the next challenge was read a book that is set around the theme of survival, and They All Fall Down is definitely set on survival. It's about these girls who are on the most popular list of the year, and every year one of those girls either dies or goes missing or whatever, so they are all trying to survive the deaths. There's a bunch of deaths that happen, and if you're on the list, you're more than likely to die. Survival book. Not in the wilderness sense, but in the serial killer sense. All right, the next challenge is featuring LGBTQIA, either the character or the author, and I'm choosing White is for Witching by Helen Oyemi. Our main character, what's her name? Lily. No, Miranda. Sorry, Lily's the mother. Miranda is lesbian. She has a girlfriend, so there is a character. LGBTQIA character in White is for Witching. All right, the next one is a book with an emotion in the title. I really liked this challenge, and I chose The Tower Hill Terror. Terror is an emotion. You can feel terror, right? By Dane Cobain. That's the sequel to Driven. And then we have number 25, or challenge 25, is to read a book related to the arts. Now, Broken Monsters by Lauren Bukes takes place in Detroit surrounding the art scene. We have an artist serial killer. We have a journalist talking about the art scene. We have, who else? His girlfriend is a DJ, which is, you know, music art. And she's dating the journalist who's talking about art. So all of the crimes have to relate to art scene. Yay! All right. The next challenge was a book from 2019, and it was a Goodreads Choice Award. So I chose My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyenkan Brathwaite. I think it's Waite. She was a nominee for the mystery thriller category on Goodreads. All right. The next challenge was to read a history or historical fiction, and I read Killers of the Flower Moon. This is the history of Native Americans in the United States in the 1930s and how they were killed off for their head rights and their land, and the birth of the FBI, and how J. Edgar Hoover was an actual dickhead. I mean, he may have founded the FBI, but he was an asshole. And I didn't know that, and now I do. All right. The next challenge was to read a book by an Australian, Canadian, or New Zealand author. And so I read The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. She's an Australian author. I gave that a 5-star. And then we have challenge 29, which is to read an underrated book or a hidden gem or a lesser known title. And that is The Untold Tales of Horror and Dread by J.B. Lovett. This is definitely underrated. There's only 29 ratings on Goodreads for this short story collection, so it's underrated. They were very strange and unusual, and he's a definitely lesser known author. I would definitely check him out. All right, and then challenge number 30 was to read a book from the New York Times. What does it say? 100 notable books for 2020, and that is Saint X. This was on the New York Times 100 notable books that you should read, and I did. So go me. All right, now we're on challenge 31, which was a book inspired by leading news story, which is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. She heard about the Golden State Killer through a podcast, I believe. Michelle didn't know anything else about him, and then she looked up articles, and then she researched a lot. So this started off with kind of like a news thing, and then exploded from there. All right, the next one is to read a book related to the 2020 Olympic Summer Games in Japan. So it could be a book set in Japan or an author of Japan. That sounded stupid, a Japanese author. So I read The Diving Pool by Yoko Ogawa. She is Japanese. This is a translated short story collection with 3 novellas in it. All right, the next challenge was to read a book about a non-traditional family, and that is Elf, Buddies Raised by Santa's Helpers. That's a non-traditional family. So Santa, he works with Santa. His adopted father is an elf. His real father is a human who lives in New York. His real father already has a son. Buddy is now, included in the family. It's all very weird. Buddy's like 30 or something when he finally meets his real dad. So it's a very non-traditional family. Okay, and then challenge 34 is to read a book with a genre or subgenre that starts with the letter in your name. And so I chose House of Leaves because this is metafiction. My name starts with M. Meta. All right, I got that challenge. Okay. Challenge 35, read a book with a geometric pattern or element on the cover. Wraith has geometric patterns on the cover. I wish it was more than just these 4 squares, but they are geometric and they are lined up. They're parallel and they are around a rectangle, which is also a geometric shape. Stretching it. All right. The next one is to read a book from your TBR wish list that you don't recognize, recall putting there, or put there on a whim. Now, I didn't remember requesting Bites of Terror from Quark because they ask me every season what books I am interested in reading. I didn't remember putting this on the list, so when it arrived, I was very, shocked, and then I ended up liking it a lot, so I was shocked about that as well. All right, challenge 37 is to read 2 books that are related to each other. So it's going to be a pair of binary opposites. So we have book 1 in a series, which is Skunk and Badger by Amy Timberlake, and book 12, or the last book in a series, by Dave Pilkey, and this is The Sensational Saga of Sir Stinks-a-Lot, the conclusion to Captain Underpants. Yay! All right. So that was 37 and 38. 39, challenge 39 is to read a book by an author whose real name you're not quite sure how to pronounce. And so again, we have Squee here, and the author's name, I wanted to say it's Johan, but that's not it. I just keep saying Johan because when I see these 2 letters together, I just assume that's it. But it's Honen? Maybe? Vasquez? I don't know how to pronounce his first name. That's too difficult for me. All right, a book with a place name on the title. The title has a place name in it. And so I chose The Colorado Kid. Colorado is a place. Yay, that was fast and easy. Challenge number 41 was to read a mystery, and I read The Secret Place. We have a mystery of who the killer is. Very good book there that I finished in December. And then we have challenge 42 is to read a book that was nominated for one of the 10 most coveted literary prizes in the world. So there's all these literary prizes that you can be attached to. There's a top 10 of those, and one of those is the Booker Prize Awards, and so Eileen was a nominee for the Booker Prize Awards. This is shortlisted. She was shortlisted for it. And this is by Otessa Moshfig, maybe. Very strange story. Very strange story. And then challenge 43 was to read a book related to one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And I chose Land Waste, because this has to do with plagues. This is about the bubonic plague or the black plague, and one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse is a plague bringer, or death. So yeah, there's that. Almost done. Challenge 44 was to read a book related to witches. I read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. This takes place in a wizarding world with witches and wizards. By the way, totally off topic, I saw this very, very, very cute little video on Facebook where a little blind girl got the entire Harry Potter series in Braille for Christmas, and she was so excited. And in the comments, a ton of older women said, "Oh, great, they're going to ruin her life with witchcraft." It's not about witchcraft, as in the devil. It's just a fantasy novel. Come on. If your child is excited about learning and reading, don't say that she can't read it because it's against God. It's not. if God was a modern day human being, right, there would be no major issues with what we're doing now, like with what we're reading and stuff. It's about friendship and sticking up for the little people, and come on. Tangent. Okay. Challenge 45 is to read a book by the same author who wrote one of your best reads in 2019 or 2018, and that is Come Tumbling Down by Shannon Maguire. All of her books have been pretty consistent, like once every year in this novellas, in the Wayward Children series, and so I liked the previous books, and so I put it on and read the next book in the series. All right, and then 46 is to read a book about an event or an era in history taken from the Billy Joel song, We Didn't Start the Fire. Now, if you look at the lyrics of We Didn't Start the Fire, it has like these words that could be part of the title or the theme of the book that I read. And so suicide is one of the themes or words in that song, and I read Social Suicide by Gemma Halliday. All right. Challenge 47 was to read a classic book you've always meant to read, and I picked up The Tooth a couple of years ago. I really like Shirley Jackson. I've read 2 other books by Shirley Jackson. I have been collecting more of her books. Enjoyed this one a lot. So that one fits the category. Challenge 48 was to read a book published in 2020. I did read 14 2020 releases, but this one is the one I chose. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Very good book. All right, and then we have Challenge 59 or 49, which is a book that fits a prompt from the list of suggestions that didn't win in previous years. So I found a prompt that said read a book with a rabbit. And so I just so happened to have a book about rabbits, and this is The Book of Bunny Suicides by Andy Riley. It's funny what you find on your shelves, especially when you buy a million books. The next challenge was to read a book with a silhouette on the cover, and I have a house silhouette. I didn't have a lot of like silhouettes of just like people, because all of my silhouettes have like another picture within it. So this was the only like silhouetted kind of read that I could find for this year. All right, number 51 was to read a book with an ing word in the title, and I read Diary of a Haunting, ing. This is Book of Shadows, book 3 in the trilogy by M. Verano. All right, and the very last challenge was to read a book related to time. Now, I have 2 for this one. I could have done the Kingdom series by somebody. This is about time. It has the real world and then the fairy tale world, which is the world of Kingdom. There's like a 30-day difference. So one day in Kingdom is 30 days on Earth. And so there's that. But also, Gwendy's Magic Feather also talks a little bit about time. The man in the bowler hat that gives her the button box can stop time. And he does that at the end of the book, so he can like talk to her without people like looking and watching and listening. But I would say the other one has more to do with time, because they have to jump from worlds, and that changes the timeline of the story because people are waiting on either side. All right, those were all 52 challenges. Again, I read 51 out of the 52 challenges for this year. Very proud of myself. I am continuing it in 2021. I have written down all of the challenges. I haven't decided what books I want to read yet for those challenges, so maybe I'll do another of these videos where I post my tentative TBR for all of those challenges. we'll see. We'll see. All right. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was entertaining at least. And I hope you guys are doing well and having a good week. And that is it. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.